What up, what up, what up, what up, what up? Greetings, 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 greetings. What's going on? What's going on? Do we have a show today? Do we have a show today? We got a show today. I got my BTP brothers on here, and we gonna go in. Listen, we gonna show and prove tonight. We're gonna show and prove tonight. We got so much going on, so much going on. So let's start and go in by saying greetings. Don't forget to subscribe, to share, and like. Okay, we're gonna go in. This is something that I've been waiting for a minute. I've been thinking about it and contemplating when I was gonna do this show, but it's here. It's here. It's finally here. Okay, so let's jump right straight into it. Let's straight jump into it. All right. So the infiltration of hip hop. Okay. As a lot of you know that I'm in the movie, the documentary Microphone Check. And someone was watching, I haven't even watched my DVD yet of it, but someone was watching the DVD and they said where Debbie D said that Disco King Mario got his name because he played disco music. That's false. That's false. That's false. That's false. That's false. That's false. He got his name actually from another person that was with Cool D. And so he was in the projects. They were doing this music in the projects. And he said he was the king. He said it over the microphone that he was the king, and Mario just was not having that. So he, in reality, what he said was, "You're not the king. I'm the king." So he took the name at that point and never gave it back. He never gave that name back, and that's what it is. So now, what was he the king of? What was the disco part of it? So at that time in the 70s, there was no, basically, there wasn't any real disco. What it was saying that they were from the discotheque. Okay, the discotheque. And that's what it was basically based on, the discotheque. So it wasn't that he was playing disco music. He was actually saying, which we were so young, at the time, we didn't go to any discotheques. We didn't know about no discotheques at all. Basically, because discotheques were actually for grown-ups, people over 21 that could actually go in there and buy a drink and do stuff like that. So we were kids. So we were not visiting any discotheques. So that's definitely number one. So what I did was I started to actually show some things. Oh, matter of fact, let me show this one first. Okay, let me show this one first. Okay, so now this is Gloria Gaynor, and her hit came out that was disco, was Never Can Say Goodbye. Now that came out in 1975. 1975. Okay, so now in 1975, hip hop had already began, because hip hop started in 1971. So you have from 71 to 75 with there's no sign of disco. Okay, there was no sign of disco. And so when Gloria Gaynor came out in 1975 with this album, Then, of course, the hit track on that was "Never Can Say Goodbye." Now, that was considered a disco record. Okay, that was considered a disco record. Now, for us playing it, hey, of course, if we're at a jam and it's a hit record, of course we're gonna throw it on the table and see what kind of spin it gets. We're gonna see what kind of reply it gets, how it's introduced or whatever. And we tried to do that. So and that was with any hit record. There was a record called My Ding-a-ling, Your Ding-a-ling. I want you to play with my ding-a-ling. Now, we would play that because at the time, that was a hit record. Okay, so of course we played all our funk, our James Brown, our Otis Ray, all of the things that were funky to us, do the Funky Penguin and all of the Joe Tex and said a bad word, and all of these things that we would play would be in our playlist. Okay, as you may. So none of those records were considered disco at all. Okay, so now let's go to the next part of it. So this is Donna Summer, and her hits came out in 1979. And one of the hits that were so popular was on the radio in 1979. Now, this is where the catch comes. So, of course, the set that people came to, the jams that they came to, they weren't trying to hear Donna Summer all night. They weren't trying to hear Gloria Gaynor or things like that. Those type of records on. They weren't trying to hear that. So we might have in 79, we might have said, okay, it's a hit record. Let's throw it on and Ring My Bell and all of those records at that time, and El Coco, Let's Get It Together. And so when we were playing these type of records, they were basically used to hustle. That meant that a boy and a girl would dance together. And that's when that era came. Okay. But now, soon after that era came, then you started seeing stuff like this. You started seeing stuff like this. Okay. You started seeing this in 1979. You start seeing this and you start hearing this because we were actually tired of not being able to do our dances, our get downs, and our burning to these new disco records. So there was a new thing that came out that said what? Disco sucks. And the first scene of that was in 1979. Okay, so for all of the people that says, oh, disco was before hip hop, disco was before hip hop, and hip hop started in 1977 or 76, here you go. This is it. This is what was happening in that 1979. This is what was happening. And so there's no such thing as we're playing disco. We're playing disco. So Disco King Mario was not a disco DJ at all. So for the people that did say, those people that never saw Disco King Mario play, and like I said on another video, he was just Mario in the beginning. He was just Mario. There was no such thing as Disco King Mario in the creation of hip hop. He was just Mario. We all took our name and that was it. DJ and MCing came later on, because you got to remember we were kids. We didn't even know what DJ stood for, disc jockey. We didn't even know what MC, master of ceremonies, came from. We didn't know that. So we only had our name and our titles. So for the person that said, oh, he had Disco King in his name, never saw him play. Never. They never saw him play at all. But they're going to tell people that that's what he used to play. So how can you tell a person or anybody what you played or what the person played and you were not there? You were not there to hear what he was playing. So you just make up anything. Say, okay, yes, he was a disco DJ when he was not a disco DJ. But if you were there in 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, you would know that Mario was playing the funk and the get down that we were loving, that came from our parents, that came from what we were hearing that we liked. So disco was not one of those things. That disco beat was for couples. It was for couples to do their thing, to hold each other, to spin each other around. But you see, in the creation of it, we were battle mode. We were in battle mode and we were showing each other's off. We were showing that we could do this move and we could show off. Now, let's move on to something that we actually can say that was it. That was it. After July 1979 release on Polydor Records, after that album, everything went down for our idol. Our idol went down because he tried to be a disco man at that time. You see, so now after 79, it's hard to even look at the godfather of funk in the same way, because he did something that he was never supposed to do. He did something that took him completely out of the original funk that he had created and laid the brand to. In 1979, the original disco man, which is very untrue, just looking at it, because he was not the original disco man. He was the godfather of funk. And then it goes on to say the original Disco Man is a studio album by the American musician James Brown. It was released in July 1979 by Polydor Records. The front cover photograph was taken by Joel Bernstein. Now, do you see the infiltration? Do you see what's happening right now? Do you see how it's getting infiltrated? Something the godfather of soul, the godfather of soul has been infiltrated in July 1979. And that, my friends, is the ending of the disco era. That is the ending of the disco era. So this disco sucks came about when? In 1979. After our idol James Brown played disco. And when he released that, we all cried. Remember, I cried. I cried like a little puppy, just like I lost my little puppy. I cried. Because there's no way in the world my idol could just resort to being infiltrated. Do you understand? Can you understand that? So now, remember, we're talking about being infiltrated, right? Let's go to the Olympics. So now you have the Olympics, and there's rules in the Olympics. There's rules. And the rules are, if you cross your legs this way, no. There's a certain way you're supposed to cross your legs. If you spin around this way, no. There's a way that you're supposed to spin around. And so the judges are looking at these ways, these rules that they have made up so that you can say, okay, there's a certain way that you're supposed to dance. There's a certain way that you're supposed to make these moves. So on earlier videos, and what I was talking to my brother about today was exactly that. So if you match up some old James Brown funk, or even the Supremes, Diana Ross and the Supremes, or Otis Redding, or the Jackson 5, or any of those Motown Funk Brothers records, you'll see that most of them, 80%, I'm willing to go to say 90% of them, there was no metronome needed. There was none needed because it was a feeling. You see? And remember what our idol said, that it's the feeling of it. It's the feeling of it. So at the moment when you're feeling something, you're not worried about, oh, I got to put my leg this way. Oh, I got to put my spin this way. I got to put my neck this way. I got to put my head this way. No, because you're feeling it and you're making it up as you're going. And that's called creation. And that's where the problem comes in, because we don't have a metronome in us. We have a flow device. And that flow device is our feeling. That's what it is. It's our feeling. And that's what we have. That's the difference. That soul inside that we have, that rhythm that we have inside of us, that's the rhythm. That's what we own. That's what we hold. And that's why it looks the way it looks. That's why there's rules to it, because they can't get that rhythm. And that's why if you listen to the music, that some of them are supposed to be dancing to. The music that they're dancing to, and then look at the motion of them dancing. And I'm talking about the Olympics now. And before the Olympic, those crews that came in and said that they were breakdancing. So what you do is you turn off the music, turn it off, turn that music off, and watch them go ahead and still be doing their flips and doing their stuff on. And then slip in some Beethoven, or slip in some ballerina music, or anything, a soundtrack to something, and they'll continue dancing. Yeah. They'll continue dancing. They'll continue spinning on the floor, jumping up, coming back up, doing that one style, doing that one thing, and jump back down and go back to the floor and do back and come back and spin around and kick their legs out. They'll still do that over Beethoven music. Now, where does that happen at? On the Beethoven music, where's the break part at? Just tell me where the break there, because that's what you're doing. You're break dancing. You're break dancing. So tell me, on that Beethoven music, where's the break? Where is the break? You can't tell me where the break is on the Beethoven music. But look, go right now. I'm sure you got it recorded or whatever. Go ahead. Go watch them break dance, and then turn off the music. Just turn off the music, and then watch, and then turn the music back on, and then you'll see, well, wait a minute, hold up. Their music is not going with what they're dancing. Even a ballerina swan dives and does their stuff. The Rockettes, they do their dance to the music. They do their dance to the music. So if you're just going to jump around, spin around, just get on the floor, turn your head, go as fast as you can, spin on your head, why do you need a break? You don't need a break. You don't need the fly beats that we searched all over the world to get, just to get the breaks. You don't need that. Because all you're doing is spinning on your head. You're putting your legs around and twisting your legs around, and you're twisting and that, and you're doing this, and you're coming up in a stance, and you're doing this. For what? That's what I say. For what? What are you doing that for? Because you're not doing that to the break. So you're just doing it. You're just doing it. You're just doing it. You're just spinning around and doing that. Okay. And so that's where the infiltration comes in, you see, because listen, when we started it, when we created it, we made moves as we did it because we were feeling the music. So when we got down on the floor, or we got back up, when we're burning, you see, because remember, burning is before the break. So you're burning and you're showing, you ain't shit. Oh, yo, look at this. You're not shit. I'm rocking your ass right now. And then when the break comes in, then I'm really going to tear you up. I'm gonna tear your ass up. Because I'm on the floor now doing these moves, and I'm doing it to the break beat. I'm doing it to the boom, 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 boom. And that's the break beat. Okay. So now listen. And I'm so glad I got these guests. I'm so glad I got these guests. All right. BTP, my brothers, because they're going to break it down and they're going to show all the stuff that everybody's been saying, and all the reasons why we're called Black, and where the infiltration comes, and shows how the people that are we don't even have accounts, because you got to understand this. All right. What we started is $1 trillion business for somebody. But who was that somebody? It sure ain't us. It sure is not us. We're not getting those $1 trillion. So people that didn't even create hip hop, people that didn't create the fashion, people didn't create our language, our wit, our slangs, they're getting trillions of dollars. And some of us don't got a pot to piss in and a window to throw it out of. The creators. But you feel like we're not infiltrated? You feel like we're not infiltrated? You think that when these people start this talking about Disco King Mario was a disco DJ, you think later on in the books, somebody's going to say, oh no, he wasn't a disco DJ. He was rocking the breaks. Think that's going to happen? It's going to happen now, because I'm not going to let it go. I'm not going to let it go. I'm not going to sit back and say, okay, yeah, y'all can just take this. I'm not going to sit back and say, okay, Puerto Ricans did this or Jamaicans did this. I'm not going to sit back and do that. It's just not going to happen. Point blank, period. All right. So now I got some brothers. It's going to break it down. They're going to break it down. So without no further ado, let's start it off. Let's start it off. All right. Introduce who you are. Let them hear who you are. Let them hear.
Peace. You can hear me all right?
Definitely could hear you.
Peace. Well, what's good, man? Glad to finally be on the platform with you. I'm Ali from Be the Power and the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. Here with my brother DJ Phase. Phase has been on our platform a couple of times already. The last time was a lot of fun. We were talking about hip hop, and your stalker came on, and you know what I mean. He was in the chat trolling like he normally does. You know what I'm saying? But we had a lot of fun with him. He gave us the opportunity to play with him, and how we used to say, not the dozens really, but we were snapping on him. You know what I mean?
Snapping on his ass. The infiltrators, the gremlins, because we call them gremlins now. We calling them gremlins. They try to get in there and mess everything up, because that's what they did. They got in there and messed things up. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's a suitable. Hey man, gremlin. That's a suitable title. We called them. We was calling them Doctor. We was calling them Columbus too, because Columbus is one of them colonizers, and that's what we dealing with, that colonizer energy in a lot of ways. So it's very befitting. Yep. So what I would say is this: we were talking about the Olympics, right? And the reason I even brought it up is because I'm the type that feels like you, that it shouldn't have never been in the Olympics, and the good thing about it is they've decided not to continue it. So from my understanding, and just from a couple of articles that I was just now looking at, breakdancing won't be back in the Olympics, which is a good thing. And some people might think it's not, but I think it is, because, in my opinion, like Faze was saying, it's something that was an expression. Like, our dances are, um, they're forms of expression. It's like, you're talking about culture, and dancing, like singing, like painting, you know what I'm saying? Like drawing, when you're drawing for artistic purpose, this is art. It's art. It's art, and it's actually the personal expression of the individual when they're doing this work. Same thing with dancing. It's a personal expression, and is a very much a cultural thing. And so, what's going to happen is, if you try to turn it into a sport, as opposed to leaving it an art form that's a part of a people's culture. If you turn it into a sport, it's like Faze was saying. Now they're gonna try to put rules to it, regulations. You got to do it a certain kind of way, like Faze was saying. It's just like with gymnastics. You have to, when you're doing your pike, you have to be in the perfect pike position. If you ain't in the pike position the right way, you can lose points, percentage of points. You know what I'm saying? When you're doing your double back tucks, you have to make sure you tucked. If you're doing a layout, you have to make sure your body's laid out a certain way, and then you have to stick the landing. If you don't stick the landing, if you bounce, you know what I'm saying, you get points or fractions of points taken off for how many times you bounce, and if your foot go, so the thing is, what they were going to have to do with breakdancing was they were going to have to do the same thing with rules, regulations. Now we're going to have to tell you, as judges, and these judges are always going to be foreigners, right? They're not, and what I mean by foreigners is that they're going to be people who are not a part of our group, the people who actually started the dancing, the people whose culture it's a part of. It's not going to be us. It's going to be a panel of judges who are going to be sitting there determining whether or not it's being done properly. And as this thing grows inside of the Olympics as a quote unquote sport, it's going to take on a whole other life where it's like, this is the way it's supposed to be done. And, and it's kind of, you got to think, when Dame Dash talks about culture vultures, you're talking about cultural appropriation, people taking something that belongs to a people and using it for their own purposes without even really acknowledging where it comes from. Because I guarantee you, I didn't watch all of it, but I guarantee you, in the Olympics, they didn't break down the history of it, and that it comes from the inner city youth, the Black Spades and Bronxdale, and people of that nature. I guarantee you, they didn't give you the history of it. You know what I mean? But what's going to happen is, based on the people who are doing it, they become the representatives of it. They become the faces of it, and that's just not proper. That's not something that we do, and that's the thing that I don't like too. People are doing things to us that we've never done to them. You know what I mean? And I don't think anybody even thinks about that kind of stuff. They're just doing stuff, and it's like one guy told me on a thread that I was talking to someone on today on Facebook. Well, earlier today on Facebook, it was like, people from the Bronx let hip hop die. And so other people are taking it and carrying it on. And I'm like, they not hip hop, breakdancing. He said they let breakdancing die. And I'm like, that's not true. That's not true. There are a lot of dances that we don't do anymore. We didn't let them die. We're just a creative people, and we're consistently moving with it. We're consistently moving forward and creating dances, right? You have those dances that the people were doing in the 40s, the Lindy Hop, right? You can go from there up to the things they were doing in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s a week, consistently making new dances, all the way up to the Harlem Shake and so forth, right? We talked about phase. You can name some of them. We were talking about the bump, the hustle, the
The
bus
bump,
stop, uh,
the funky chicken, the wop, the
the WAP.
Dougie, the Bismarck, the Pee Wee Herman, the all of them.
Like, and that's the thing, like, so many dances have been created before and since breakdancing, like, but you know, it's not that we're letting anything die. It's just that because of the type of people we are and the creative spirit that we have, we're going to keep doing stuff. We're going to keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. That's just how it's been. That in itself is a major part of our culture, being creative and consistently coming up with something new, consistently coming up with something new. Other people don't have that. And that's no disrespect to them, but they don't have it, right? So it's like, they don't understand that. They're thinking we're just letting stuff die. It's not that. It's not that. It's just that we're creative. And so I'll stop with that. If you want to go into
Can I interject? Can I interject? You're a musician, right? You're a producer. And
yes.
one thing that we were talking about was that when you put on that song, and we were saying that it didn't have a key count, it didn't have a metronome behind it. Those older songs, and so if it doesn't have a metronome behind it, what is actually driving that force? Can you hear me?
I hear you. It seemed like it froze for a second, but I hear you.
So what is driving that force if there's not a metronome, and let the people know what a metronome is. Let them know what a metronome is.
A metronome is a device that was used by musicians. I think probably started with orchestras and stuff like that, but was used by musicians for different things. They would use it as they were practicing. My father, who was also a musician, had an actual metronome, and one of those old ones was like tick tock, and you can also, it has a weight on it, on the arm of it has a weight where you can set it at a different timing, right? Depending on where you set the weight, it'll do different timing. So you can do 4/4, which is 1, 2,
So
3.
basically, it's a time count. It's a time count
Yeah, it's
because
something that.
every measure, people that know music, every measure has a certain amount of beats in it, right?
Hmm.
So metronome keeps those times, those counts, and just like when you
Absolutely.
were starting to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4,
Hmm.
3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Now
Right.
that's 4 measures, right?
Hmm.
And so that's the count of music. Now,
Yep.
a lot of people, us,
Hmm.
we don't need that because we have the feeling. And so
Right.
what James Brown used to always say is he wants to be in the pocket. So
Hmm.
in other words, our flow is not tick tock, tick tock. Our flow is tick and a tock and a tick and a tock and a tick and a tock and a tick.
Hmm.
And that, just that Anna, is the part that other people don't have. They don't have that. And so now which brings us, can catapult us to that African thing that they say, that where we got it from. So if you remember, see, in earlier African times, everything was done by the beat of the drum. Everything was done by the beat of the drum. So, in the beginning of those, I guess you would call events or songs, if you may, they were beating the drum. So, they didn't have the burning part that we created. Okay. So the burning part of the record is the beginning part of the record. That's the hearing part. And that's when you have all the instruments in there. You have the bass drum, you have the guitar, you have the piano, you have the horns, and they're all gumming together in these parts. Now, some records start off with just the drums, like Apache. Apache starts off with the drums and the bongos, and then it goes up. Dun 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 dun. The horns come in. Bing, bing, bing. Now, on that part of the record, you're burning. You're doing your stuff because you're catching the thing. Now, when that goes dun 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 that 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 could do that could do a boom boom back. That's the break part. That's the break part. And that's the part where you can go on the floor, you can come up, come back down, throw around or whatever, but you're doing it to those boom, boom, ba, ba, boom, ba. And that's the part that's missing because they don't have that inside of them. They don't have those beats inside of them. Now, going back to the Africans, they were doing that. They were doing all just the beat part of it. And so their whole dance is structured around that beat, that break. And they even, and what's so crazy to me is that how they're able to even just by the drums, they have the women and the guys doing it together, and they're in unison, and they're doing it together. You see? And so that's where the big problem comes in when we look at these crews, these supposed to be so-called break crews that don't do it in unison. You look, if you take I saw it the other day. It was so good. How one of the younger people did her thing, and then the next guy came in, and he did his thing, but they all did it to the beat. They did it to the beat. Okay, so let's bring this in. Let's go into the part about the Africans and how we actually went from Africa or the to here. The transport and how they went from Africa to here, or if they did, or what would the structure is. So I'm gonna let you go ahead and do that. Okay, I know there's some
Right.
things you're gonna put on.
So I'll preface it by saying this, right? Because I know a lot of I don't want people to think that we're saying that Africans created hip hop, because I know that's not what you're saying. That's not what we're suggesting, or that hip hop came from Africa or anything of that nature. However, I'm not one of the people who is a slave trade denier. I'm not a slave trade denier. There are those who deny that the slave trade ever happened, and for different reasons. And to me, that's just not a real. It's not a real thing. I understand the slave trade to have happened. There's documentation um, that it happened on both sides of the Atlantic. From Europe, there's documentation about it. There's documentation about it in Africa on the continent. You have African chiefs right now, um, and even in the past, who have apologized for their tribe's role in the slave trade, specifically the people from Dahomey. And there was at least maybe three African chiefs in modern times who apologized for their people's roles in the slave trade. You have the records of it here, right? You have various plantation documents that speak about the slaves that were imported into the colonies, or when it was colonial America, afterwards into the United States, before they outlawed the slave trade. And I think it was 1807, 1808, somewhere around there. They outlawed the slave trade, not slavery, but the slave trade itself. It became an illegal thing to transport people from Africa or from anywhere else uh, into the United States for the purposes of slave labor. So I'm not one of the people who denies the existence of the slave trade. You do have those. And the reason that that's important is because there are things that I believe were retentions, right? Things that our people retain from their various previous cultures, right? And when we say Africa, it's a broad term, but it's a broad term that's a general term for groups of people who had different cultures and customs that came here, whether it was on their own, because you know you have documentation about some of them coming on their own during the the late 1400s, early 1500s, as quote unquote black conquistadors. You can look this up. The first Europeans coming here were the Spaniards and the Portuguese. And along with the Spaniards and the Portuguese, there were some quote unquote black people. Um, they were of African stock. Some of them were living in Europe at the time. They came with them, and they're documented in history as quote unquote black conquistadors. You can Google that. Um, so that starts in the late 1400s, early 1500s. And at the same time, then you have the slave trade where the Dutch, the English, right, and others were bringing Africans either from Europe or from the African continent, sometimes to the Caribbean, then from the Caribbean to the Carolinas, to Louisiana, to different places here, right? They were in transit. They were Africans in transit. But what I'm saying is that these people had cultures and customs that they practiced, that some of those things, those elements were retained, and in the process of what some people call ethnogenesis, which is the beginning of the origins of a new ethnic group of people, which a lot of people look at us as a new group of people in the United States based on the circumstances that our families have gone through specifically, as well as the fact that we are a mixture of a number of different people, right? So, for instance, you have, matter of fact, let me share this screen real quick, and then I'm gonna go into I just want them to see what I'm talking about in terms of who the people were in the documentation of some of the people from this particular plantation. There is a plantation in Louisiana called the Whitney Plantation, right? And the Whitney Plantation actually documented, let me just pull this.
While you're doing that, I
Yeah,
wanna
the Whitney Plantation.
go ahead. Go ahead. You got it.
The
Okay, there
Whitney
you go.
Plantation
Okay.
documented um, what they said are the 18 most frequent African ethnicities in Louisiana. This is just was in Louisiana. We're not talking about all of the other slave states, just in Louisiana, right? And so you have here them listed by quote unquote ethnicity, as well as gender, male and female, and the total amounts of each types, right? And so if you look at this, you'll see from the Greater Senegambia that was brought to the Whitney plantation specifically. You have people called the Bamana or Bambara. You had a people called Mandinga or Mandinka. A lot of people know it's Mandinka or Mandingo. Nar or Moor for the people who don't think that Moors were brought here. Nar is a way of saying more. It's another way of saying more, but it's the way that the Wolof people would say the word more, right? So for the people who think that Moors weren't here, that's not true. They brought Moors here as well. They were part of the slave trade. As a matter of fact, those black conquistadors that I mentioned, these were leftover Moors in many instances who were in Europe already at the time of the fall of the last Moorish stronghold in Europe in the 1490s. You had the Pullard or the Fulbe, the Senegal or Wolof people, Kisi, and the Kanga. Then from the Bight of Benin, you had the Chamba, Mina, Fan or Orada, the Hausa, the Nago or the Yoruba, Then from the Bight of Biafra, you have Edo, Igbo, Ibibio, Omoko, Calabar. Then you have people from West Africa, from the Congo, as well as a few from East Africa, the Makwa people, right? And so the reason I wanted to show that is because just to the point about blackness, because I wanted to read the caption that I put on the side of this. Um, though I said those who came on their own, right? Those conquistadors who might have came on their own because they weren't slaves. A lot of them were not slaves, some were, or those who were imported into North America for the purpose of slave labor, as well as the descendants of the inhabitants of Africa, had their own names, as we see here. They weren't Negroes, blacks, colors, or Africans. The word Africa is of Roman construction and was used by Europeans to denote former Carthaginian territory in the northernmost portion of the continent after the defeat of Carthage in the Third Punic War. So the word Africa was originally the name of a Roman province called Africa Proconsularis, also known as Africa Roman Province. So I'm going to stop sharing that, right? And just talk a little bit about the fact that what the way I see this is that with those different groups of people that we saw listed just in the Whitney plantation in Louisiana, and there were several plantations all throughout the South with different people who were imported, right? You
Okay,
have,
hold that thought. Hold that thought. Okay, so you said something about the European name, right? Africa. And so
it's actually Roman. It's actually a Roman
Roman, Roman.
designation.
Okay, right. So now if you go to what we're saying now, and let's go with breakdancing. So we called it breakdancing, right? We called it burning and breakdancing. And we named that, right? We're the ones that named that and said that, right? So the same thing like what you're saying, they come over and they name something like, just like how you said Africa, because we're going to go into the black as well, I'm sure. And so our creation, our language, our everything has now been put to the side, and we use this. So just like breakdancing, our creation is say, no, we're going to put this to the side and we're going to call it this. What they're doing now is this. Am I kind of correct on believing that and saying that's what happened?
Yeah, that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. And let me just say this real quick. Um, the, just because I see something that I wanted to address. Yeah, this is not a Moorish conversation. What I'm trying to show is that there were different people who were documented as being brought here, you know, by European documentation, and Moors happened to be a part of that group of people that were brought here for the purpose of slave labor. Now, I mean, what I showed you was actually something from the plantation and the website and what they have documented on their website. That's not anything that I made up, right? So when
Right.
you see the term Moor there, that's something that they have in their records as being some of the enslaved people that they had on that particular plantation. That's all that is, right? And in terms of these quote unquote Moorish people as black conquistadors, that's exactly who the so-called black conquistadors were. When you had these battles in Europe, where the Europeans were trying to regain control of Spain, they expelled some of these Moorish people. Right, some of them stayed, some of them were held as captives there. Others left and went back into Africa. Right, you can read about this. This is easy stuff to Google. Some of the quote unquote Moorish people, and I'm using the term Moor um, loosely because they were not all Mauritanians. They
Right.
were not all Mauritanians. Some of these people were simply Muslims. Some were of the Hebrew faith, right? But they were being called Moors because for two reasons. One of the reasons is that the term Moor became synonymous with the term Muslim or Musulman, right? Muslim or Saracen were synonymous terms with the term Moor for Europeans, as well as the fact that the term Moor took on a racial type of connotation where the term became synonymous over time with the word Negro. So because these people were dark skinned of the African continent, of African stock, various African stocks, they're not just one group of people. As a matter of fact, there's a video of Dr. John Henry Clark explaining who the Moors were from a were some of the principal tribes that formed what they call the Moors, and some of these people were from West Africa, along with others from North Africa, etc., that went into Europe. It's not a narrative, right? There's no narrative, man. This is a part of African and European history, and some of those people came to the Americas as quote unquote black conquistadors in the late 14, early 1500s. That's all that is. It has nothing to do with any particular ideology. You're talking about actual history that you can, look this stuff up. But in any case, the point of all of that was to say that there were certain things that I think are retentions, right? Things that were kept in terms of the customs that were brought with various different people, like things that Yoruba may have had, things that people who were Hausa may have had, things that people who were Fulani may have had. And when all of these people were forced to mate, right? Because what happened in this country is all of the different people that you seen on that list, all of those different groups of people were forced to mate together. So the quote unquote African American, the Black American is an amalgamation of all of these different groups of people, right? You got all these different groups of people that were brought here, whether it was through slave breeding, or the fact of just the proximity where our ancestors were all together on a plantation, whatever the case is. You have now an amalgamated group of people called African Americans, Black Americans, whatever the case. We use the term American freedmen, right? We don't use Moorish American. We use the term American freedmen. That's why you see freedmen on the screen as part of my name here. But the fact of the matter is, it's an amalgamated group that consists of various African ethnicities, if you will, Europeans, as well as some Native Americans. So when you look at, and I'm gonna get off of this, but when you look at the average breakdown of African Americans from a genetic perspective, you'll see that the majority is usually of some African stock, right? Then European, and then a smaller amount of Native American. That's pretty much the average for most of us who are quote unquote African American, Black American, etc. But the point of it all is that I look at it as we retain certain things, customs, and parts of various African cultures, and it all came together along with the things that were very much American, things that even came from Europe, right? Because that's a part of our experience too. The Europeans and the things that they brought, it comes together what they call an ethnogenesis, and now we're a new people. And so hip hop as an experience, right, as a culture, as a subculture, I call hip hop a subculture of the larger quote unquote Black American, if you will, culture. American freedman culture is a subculture because everything that is considered an element or component of hip hop are things that already existed in the larger quote unquote Black or American freedman culture. The
Okay,
break
stop
the
right there.
All right.
Stop right there. Stop right there. All right, because you're getting ready to go into something that is so pertinent to what we're getting ready to talk about. So what I want to do is, there's a couple of people that they said that they hit my Cash App, and so we want to bring them on actually on stage, and we're going to do some of their chats, and so let's start with him, which is C Hanks 2. Peace to the chat and my FBA family. China Black is here. She says peace, chat. Okay, we're going to go down. We're going to go down. All right. And okay, one of the things that I saw I was just going through some things, but I saw this, and I'm looking at it to say that he's not even getting what we said. I don't know who it is, but here it is. Okay, Jay says, I Can't Stop, Paradise, Frisco Disco, a lot of beats were disco records. Disco is a part of hip hop. Okay,
Yeah,
so
but
now,
Frisco Disco is not really a disco record.
but listen,
And
that's
not
not even,
from the way it sounds to me. But go ahead, go ahead.
listen, I'm a beat master, and I'm getting ready to show this guy what we're talking about. So if you go back and you look at the dates of I Can't Stop was not 1970 or 71. Paradise was not 1970 or 71. Frisco Disco was not 1970 or 71. So when you say a part of hip hop, you're talking about a later part of hip hop. You're not talking about the creation of hip hop. So for you to throw these break beats in there, because if you noticed, in all of those records that you just named, we didn't play the whole record. The only part we played was the break part, the part that had the drums on it. Okay, so bring in these I Can't Stops and Paradise. I could play them all. I could show you the original, the Giant 45. I could show you the album of it.
Yo, that's an excellent point you're making, because
exactly.
Even when you use a record that may be considered disco, that's why I said Frisco Disco to me, the part that they're playing, that's not a disco. Like it's hard to say disco influence them, because
it's a break.
Is funky.
It goes from the drums, and it has that part. I Can't Stop. It goes boom 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 boom, that boom 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 boom. Paradise is very nice.
Yeah, that's funky.
Paradise is very nice, man. Okay. So those are the break parts.
That's funk.
So those guys that come and they say, "Oh, it was a part of hip hop." You're telling me that what? You're telling me that the break was a part of a hip hop, because that's what we were looking for, the breaks.
Right, but he said
if you let I Can't Stop or Paradise or Frisco Disco play after the break part, you lost the crowd. You lost the crowd.
Look,
like, what the hell are you doing? You lost the crowd. So I guess this Jay guy was a DJ that played I Can't Stop from the beginning to the end. This guy Jay was a DJ that played Frisco Disco from the beginning to the end. And so this is what I'm talking about. So people come in and they say, first of all, like I said, it has nothing to do with the creation, because all the records that he played, that he picked, had nothing to do with the creation of hip hop at all. So for him to come in there and throw that because he knows a couple of names of some records, there was some breaks, come on. And this is what I'm talking about. Now, everybody else, right, in the chats. Yes, I can hear you. The
So peep
people
this real quick, because I don't want to lose. He said, of course they played the breaks, but the point is that the break was not a disco break; it was a funk break. That's why I kept saying it. Those, like you saying, the beat, doom, that, get to go, that, doom, bet, that's a funk beat. That's not no disco beat. So
it's
the
not
thing that you understand to be disco in the form of the music, that's not something that had any kind of influence on hip hop. The funk is what had the influence on hip hop. Go ahead.
right, right. Exactly. And then look, he says this again. He says, and I just want to just show this guy Jay. I want to show him. I want to show him. Phenomenon, right? Theme was disco, a hardcore hip hop beat, right? Now, if you listen to Phenomenon, when you look at the time that it came out, the part that we liked goes bam bam bam. Uh, 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 right? That's Phenomenon, right? So now, after that part came on, we wasn't still dancing to that record. We was not still dancing to that record. So we only bought that record for the break. And the break is what makes it hip hop. Not the
Right.
record itself. The break makes it hip hop.
Not
So
the
this guy,
genre, the break.
exactly, not the genre. Right. Exactly. Thank you. And that's what kills me with these guys. They just want to come in and say, "Oh,
It's
well, disco was
nuance.
this. Oh, well, disco do this. And then I see up there, Buji Banton just dropped a critique of reggaeton stealing from reggae. So this tells
Yeah.
me that this is a Jamaican. This is what he tells me just by him saying that. He's telling me that he's Jamaican. And so they're trying their best so much to say anything to go against what we're saying. Is anything to say that we're the creators of it, that we were in the Bronx, we were in Bronxdale projects, I was going all over everywhere, getting on the 6th train, going to Brooklyn, going to Manhattan, going to Yonkers, going to all of these different places, to these record stores to get these breaks. Not the whole record. You know how many records
Right.
I have in my house that I've never even heard the rest of the record because I only wanted that one part of the break.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Never even listened to the rest of the record.
Yeah.
And so that's the whole part of, oh my God. Okay, let's look. He goes, Bra by Cinema was played in discotheques and the beat was extended with mixers in 72. What part was Bra? And that's what I'm talking about. The break part.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
See, that's the
Okay.
thing. Like, you gotta be able to see the nuances of what's being said and what actually took place. So what Phase is saying is that when you look at disco as a genre of music and a style, right? The style of music and the way that the songs were constructed, you had a certain type of beat, usually a driving 4/4 beat. Doom, 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 doom,
Right.
doom, doom, right? You
Right.
had that. Then you have a string section, this really big string orchestral section going on, like you hear with the Love Unlimited Orchestra with Barry White's orchestra. You know, he was
Right.
what he did was a great example of what disco was in terms of how it manifested during that time period. What he did, what
Right.
Van McCoy did, you know what I mean? You can listen to Do the Hustle, you can listen to the Love Unlimited Orchestra by Barry White, and you can hear in terms of the overall sound of what disco was and how it was presented to the world. You can hear it with those particular compositions that they did. However, what Phase is saying is not about the entire composition of the thing that we calling disco. What the DJs were finding was those funky break beats in the middle of a song where everything drops out, all the instruments may have dropped out or something, and it's the drummer. the drummer's getting his off, right? And once the what happens with drummers, pay attention when anybody gives the drummer some, what you're going to find out is the drummer is going to break away from the normal drive of the song, and he's going to usually break into something that sounds like some kind of a funk beat. Always remember that. You know what I'm saying? You can watch that even today, right? Where you it could be let's see, what's the young you're not Christina Aguilera, but anyway, you think about it, right? Any artist, if they give the drummer something, the drummer's gonna generally break into some kind of funky type of beat and go into
Funky.
some rudiments and things of that nature. I'm speaking like this because I'm an actual musician myself. You're gonna break into some funky beat, then he's gonna go into some rudiment stuff where he's gonna start doing his thing where he can show some tricks. He might be twirling the sticks and all this shit while he's hitting the cymbals and all that and rolling through the toms and everything
And
like that.
that's the
So
get down part.
exactly.
That's the
Yes.
get down part. And now this is where I gotta show the difference. Okay, so now you have these disco beats, right? The ones that the disco that we're talking about, right? And you have those records like MFSB or Good Times or all of that stuff like that, right? Those were records that were supposed to be for a man and a woman, a boy and a girl to dance together in. Break beats are single. It's a competition. You're going single. You're going on the floor singly. And when we first created, it was boy against boy. It wasn't boy against girl. It wasn't boy, it was boy against boy. So that's when we kind of grew up and didn't do it anymore because we wanted to dance with girls. We wanted to hold a girl. We wanted to hustle with a girl. We wanted to do the freak with a girl. We wanted to do that with a girl. We didn't want to do that with no boy. We didn't want to do that with a boy. So all of those people that said that we left it. No, we got older. We got older. We wanted to start thinking about having a girlfriend. We wanted to dance with our girlfriends. We didn't want to dirty up our clothes on the floor. We got some brand new AJs, Montneck, British Walkers, Playboys. We didn't want to scuff our stuff up on the floor. Are you kidding me? We got older. So all of those breaks that these guys are talking about, yes, that's the creation. That's what we wanted, that drum beat. Okay, I'm going to let him go for a minute, but hold on. Patrick Young says, DJ Phase, wasn't this around the time that the split came between him and Bobby Bird? Yes, and Bobby Bird really doesn't get enough credit for being the co-creator of Funk. R.I.P. Bobby Bird and Toka. Yes, Georgia. Okay, so yes. So right. And if you remember that disco album, when they came out and they looked the way they looked, we all was like, wait a minute, that ain't funky. That ain't look at how they're looking. And you remember at those, and you got to remember that was like the beginning of the out the door type of the alphabet things, how they say now, because I don't want to say the wrong thing by saying
the village people.
Right, right. And that's when they started doing that more, and it was more out in the open. And so we were like, wait a minute, we're not going that way. Point blank, period. We're not going that way. And so that, yes, that, my man, is about the time. Okay, let's take one more and then we're going to go back, because I want you to, I hope you are pulling up the lady about the ship. I hope that's what you could be pulling up. Is that where you were going to go to after this?
I didn't know if we needed to, but I can I mean,
Yes, I want you to pull that up because one of the things that what I want people to understand is that, so not saying that it came from Africa or did not come from Africa. What I'm saying is that when we, and I can say we because I was there on the steps. I was there when in 1971, 70 and 71, and I was doing it. So we were not thinking about Africa. We didn't have internet and stuff like that. The only time we would see anything with Africa is when we watched National Geographic. Remember National Geographic? And that would come on after the cartoons and stuff in the 70s, after Soul Train and stuff, because we only had a certain amount of channels. So that's when, and we would watch that and see Africa because the ladies wouldn't have on any shirts. So that's what we knew about Africa, and so we didn't know that you see the videos today where you see the Africans dancing and stuff like that.
we didn't have that.
We didn't have that. So the people that are saying, oh well, you forget about your African ancestry, and we didn't have that. We didn't know that. These younger generations, y'all got internet, y'all got cell phones and stuff like that. We did not have that. We're talking about 70, 71, 72, and 73. We did not have the internet. We had only a certain amount of channels on our TV. Some of us didn't have color TV.
And Phase, remember, some of them channels went off at 11 o'clock,
12 o'clock, 11 o'clock. That was it.
No,
it's 11 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? And your kids better been in the house and on their way to bed.
I think NBC had the circle. Right,
the circle, right, and it showed, and all you would hear is go boo, and that would be it. Okay, so we could not go on YouTube and see what they're doing in Africa. We could not go and our books or whatever and see the videos of them doing it. We could not turn our TV on and see what they were doing. So that came from
Naheem said us. Tarzan.
Naheem said, right, exactly.
He's right. Tarzan was what we. That's
how we knew about Africa, of those things like that. And look who Tarzan was. Tarzan wasn't one of us. He didn't look like one of us or whatever. All we knew is that he had a knife and that he could fight animals and stuff like that. That's all we knew. So we didn't see nothing about no African doing this dance or doing that. So when they say that, it really kills me. And that's why I wanted to show them that the how they came or what they did or whatever. And at the set, and that's why I just like with this guy, when he said that about these different records and everything, and saying the disco and everything, that's what they're doing. That's the part that gets it confused with hip hop. Okay, so because believe it or not, you see, we weren't the ones that like disco. The other people is the ones that like disco. They're the ones that played the whole record of disco.
Wait. I ain't gonna lie. I liked Barry White's stuff, but I also liked some of that stuff from Saturday Night Fever, man. I can't front some of that stuff.
But you gotta remember, listen, go to I Got Every Barry White album. Go and look at the dates of when those albums were released.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and by the time when those were released, like I love Unlimited, I love that. But those are the musics that you sit back, you're driving in the back of the car, and you're going somewhere, and you're watching your parents or whatever, and they talking to each other, and you're thinking about your girlfriend in your class or whatever, and that's what that was. Those were and Barry White got beats too. He had some beats, and we would play just that.
Yeah.
We would play just that.
That one right there.
We wouldn't play the whole rest of the record. We'll play that because that's the break part of it. That's the break part of it. And so
look, Phase. Robert Rand says he disagrees. We did have African dance. I don't know when people started teaching African dance. I remember there was a man by the name of Larock Bay. I don't know if do you remember Larock Bay Phase? He had a dance thing,
it
I
was
think, in
like
Harlem.
it was like the dance theater of Harlem. It was that type of things, right? Mm-hmm.
So I just don't know when the dance theater of Harlem start teaching African dance. I don't know when Larock Bay and his troupe started doing African. Like, what year did they really start doing that stuff? Because I was just saying, because there was a brother who says that we did have African dance, and some people knew about African dance. Okay, but I didn't really know
before you
about
say that, because I know what you're going to say. But before I say that, okay, so now this African dance that you're talking about, right? Could you go to a jam and do that?
No.
Could you go to the jam and do that African dance and do that? Could you do that at a jam?
No.
So what does that have to do with hip hop? What does that have to do with hip hop? What does that have to do with the funky chicken? What does it have to do with hip hop? We're talking about hip hop here. We're talking about hip hop. And so that's what happens. Everything got, okay, the bongos is in there. So, that because it's they were playing bongos, so it's African. The flute was in there. Okay, well, the flute came from this, and then so is that, people. And so that's what everybody is trying their best to say, okay, if they play bongos in this record, it was African. If they played if it came off of a disco record, the funk break came off a disco record, it was disco. And that's what that's the infiltration that this whole title's about. It's the infiltration of trying to get in there and say that the reason why this happened, why it was influenced, is because of these things. And it's just not true. It's not true. And so that's what gets me so aggravated, is because, like, okay, so you mean to tell me that this hired hand, all right, you got a funk record, and then maybe the person that produced this record wants to hear the bongos played a certain way. So they hired that bongo player to play those bongos the certain way that they told them to play. And because of that, then somebody says, oh, now that's a Spanish record. Because the one bongo, that guy played that one little bongo inside of that thing. And it makes no sense to me. It makes no sense of how they infiltrate and do that. Okay, let's go to DJ X1. Phase, I sent you a little something on your Cash App. Peace. See, now I can put his text, DJ X1. I could put his comments up all day. Okay, I could do that all day, because that's what's supposed to happen. And the reason why it's supposed to happen is because the information that we're doing, the stop is a movement. This is a movement that we're doing. We're showing us, our people, how to make this move so that we can get those trillions of dollars and not give the $1 trillion to someone else. See, we have to all come together. We have to come together and show that we're taking this hip hop back. We have to not let the infiltrators get in and take it. Look what they already did with the Olympics, and look, like I said, okay, here, let's show this. It says C. Hanks second. LOL, the gremlins, that's fitting name, fitting name for the culture vultures. And that's true. It's true. So I just, while you were gone, I put this up. I put this up where it says DJ X1 Phase, I sent you a little something on your Cash App. And I'm telling the people that what he did right there, DJ X1, I'm gonna put his, anytime I see it, I don't care what he says, I'm gonna put his comment up and acknowledge him, because what he's doing is he's seeing a movement. He's seeing the movement that we're doing. And if we you just don't know the power that we can have to do the movement. Later on in this thing, we're not going to stay too much longer, but I want you to explain to them about this event that we're going to put, and why we're putting the event, and why we're talking about reparations, and why we're doing that. I want you to explain that. I need to just go a couple of more of these comments, because that's what, I want the people to see that. I want people to see that. Let me see. Was okay. Okay, here we go. Let's put this guy up. DL. Once they saw they couldn't culture vulture it, they sabotaged it with ray gun. And that was, oh man, listen, Ali, when I put that up the other day and I saw that, it was a complete shame what they did, and it's so hard to even watch it. I couldn't watch it. That's number one. I could not watch the Olympics and saw that thing, because it's hurtful. It's hurtful to right in front of our face see that they know it's a $1 trillion creation, and they don't even want us to get that $1 trillion. They want to take that $1 trillion. And so we're doing right now, is getting the movement together so that we can get that $1 trillion. Because they're not going to, after we put their foot on that thing, and that's just like with the reparations. See, they're putting so many excuses up in front of us, and you guys are tearing those excuses down. And it's going to be a time where they can't even say any more excuses, because you covered all the corners. And you know what my pops used to always tell me? He says, once you got them on the ropes, you got them. And that's what we're doing. We're putting them on the ropes. So after we put them on the ropes, once we do go down to the body, once we tear that body up, we hit them in the head. And once we hit them in the head, that's knockout season. And that's what we want to do, brother. We want to knock these people out. So did you get the thing with that? Because I want to
with the young lady.
Yes, I want to go ahead and show them that. I want to show them that, and then they're going to get a idea of what we're talking about. Okay, so you have that.
I got it up.
Okay, so let's do that. There you go. Okay, take the wheel.
There is no other site in the world that presents so much evidence of the proof of slave ships. The date of the last known slave ship, the Clotilda, which was discovered in 2019 in Alabama waters, has concluded, and they've concluded that it should stay underwater. Before the Where All the Slave Ship people start, come on in. Let's get started and learn something new. Just in case you don't know what the Clotilda is, I'm going to do a quick 15-second background, but also there's a documentary on Netflix called Descendants that I encourage you to watch. I promise you'll learn something new. The Clotilda was discovered 159 years after it was intentionally sunk in 1860 to hide evidence that it was used to smuggle enslaved people. Now, the only reason the Clotilda exists is because of a bet. We got to take it back a couple years before the Clotilda started bringing in those enslaved Africans. Timothy Mayer was the owner of the Clotilda, and Timothy Mayer and his friends were discussing the latest attempt by Congress to suppress the illegal slave trade. The subject was whether or not somebody could get away with it. He said, I bet $1,000 that inside 2 years, I myself can bring a ship full of into the Mobile Bay under the officers' noses. Unfortunately, he won the bet and he successfully brought West Africans to Mobile Bay, Alabama. He burned and sunk the ship to, of course, hide evidence. Later on, he was almost convicted and so was the ship's captain, but of course, they didn't have any evidence, so he got away with it. Later on in life, he bragged to a newspaper that he got away with it. Fast forward to 2024, the descendants of the Clotilda live on the land called Africa Town, and Timothy Mayer's family still owns the land of Africa Town. I actually have a video on this where the descendants of the Mayer family and the descendants of the Clotilda actually meet. It's very interesting. Scroll on back if you want to learn something new. This was a state-funded $1 million investigation on how to bring the Clotilda back up. But the underwater archaeologists concluded that the safest bet is to leave it underwater because they would have to bring it up piece by piece, nail by nail, and reconstruct it back on land, which of course would compromise some of the physical evidence that they would need to investigate what happened on this ship. Instead of an excavation, they're recommending to protect the Clotilda to install large pillars around the ship to protect it from other ships and vessels. They're hoping that the Clotilda can last underwater for about 100 years or so before erosion gets to it. And just so we're clear, the reason why we don't see slave ships in museums that look like this is because they didn't exist like this. The person who drew this, which became one of the most popular circulated photos of slave ships, did not ever enter a slave ship. This is what he thought a slave ship would look like on the inside. Now, the reason why this became so popular is because abolitionists use this rendering to be able to advocate for the stop of the slave trade. 99% of the boats were just regular raggedy yachts, schooners, and boats. They did not look like this. The ship captains didn't care about any on-deck, low-deck features for the enslaved people. They just wanted to be able to get to the Caribbean or the USA and get back. This is why when we find evidence of slave ships, it's broken down into pieces made of wood, not able to be preserved for a long time because they were not invested in making long-lasting slave ships. They didn't care about that. As long as I can make it on these little 4 or 5 trips and get my big chunk of money, I'm done. And after that, the ship can sink. I'm going to burn it. I'm going to repurpose it. And in the small amount of time that they created actual slave ships, which also slave ships took a long time to make, and the couple of slave ships that they did make that were specifically made for enslaved people, they repurposed them. A lot of them went into the military. There isn't some weird conspiracy going on about them all of a sudden finding all of the slave ships. This woman has been working with Diving with a Purpose since 2003, finding slave shipwrecks all throughout the Atlantic Ocean. Also another one called the Slave Wrecks Project. Since 2021, they have also been looking for evidence of slave ships and finding slave ship wreckage. The reason why we're just now finding them is because the equipment got better, the technology got better, the archaeologists got better and more knowledgeable. That's why we're finding them. You know who's not questioning the existence of slavery in the slave ships is the descendants of the Clotilda. Now, they have been a major part of the conversations about how to move forward after the discovery of the ship in 2019. But after they found out the news about it not being able to be excavated or it would likely be destroyed, they said it really is about the people and not the ship. It's a real significant story, and I think that people really should think in terms of trying to do enough of something to help preserve this community. And like I said, memorialize that ship. I hope you learned something new. There's no other.
All right.
Wow. Now, because
right.
I know you're going to go in, but I got to go in. Okay, so now this is exactly what I'm talking about as far as being used for financial gain for someone else. So right now, the record companies, the whole everything that is attached with hip hop is for them to get financial gain, just like those slaves. They're there to get the financial gain from those slaves. Those slaves came and did the work here. They did the work. They did everything that you could think of. They built, they did everything. And that's the same thing that's happening now. That's the same thing. And so that's why another group of people want to come in, and because they're the closest to those, you know what I call them, pink people. And so that's what they want to do. They want to take, so the creator, us, the creators, we already got pushed aside. And now they want to give another set of people to take over that and say they did it, so that we're still going to be third. We're still going to be get the little pieces of the money after. So I'm glad that you showed that and showed what's actually happening now. She said something about the technology. Now, it took us, I'm over 60, right? And it took us from all the schooling that I did, from elementary, the junior high school, the high school to college, right? It took the technology now to know and hear what was happening and why the slave ships were this way or whatever. It took till now to know that. So imagine when I was a kid, where am I going to know that at? Where am I going to find out that information at? The true answer is I would not have found that out. I would not have. And so that's the same thing that I'm telling you about as far as doing the African dance, or somebody saying, you know, oh, we used to do the African dance. Where would we know that from? Where would we have, what research could we have done to see that? And that's just my point. Go ahead, Ali. Take the wheel.
Well,
Go ahead.
I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna show something real quick. Hold on. Let me just pull this up, because some of this stuff, well, it wasn't out when we were young, but it came out later, right? So my introduction, put it like this. I'll say this. My introduction. He says I'm confused now. I don't. What are you confused about, Robert Rand? But anyway, my introduction to Africa was Roots, the Roots miniseries that came on
Exactly.
in the
Exactly.
1970s. So they didn't have any influence on anything. Africans didn't have any influence. Maybe I can clear up what maybe maybe I can clear up what it is. They didn't have any influence as Africans on hip hop culture, and that's the point that Phase is making. Um, the thing that I think we need to remember is, like I said earlier, um, there is what I would call retentions, right? Things that were retained, things that were ingrained in the DNA and in the memory of the people through the various customs that came with the ancestors, right? I don't want to ever forget my ancestors. This is just me. Other people can, you can disassociate from your ancestors and your ancestry if you want, whatever works the best for you. But I don't disassociate from any part of my ancestry. And so for me as a musician, I've dealt with a lot of rhythm over the years, right? Rhythms, polyrhythms, things of that nature. And I can see the relationships between things that we do culturally through retention of things that was, things that were, things that happened for our ancestors. It's just like, for instance, let me give you an example. I learned how to work on automobiles from my father. There's certain things that I learned from him because my father was a auto mechanic, he was a carpenter, and a sheet metal mechanic, right? All of this stuff, as well as a musician. He was a saxophonist and a guitarist and a singer. He sang and played in church. He could take a car apart and put it back together by his damn self, right? He could damn near build a house from scratch. He's one of them. My father was one of them Southern cats that just, they knew how to do shit. You
Because
know what
they
I'm
had
saying?
to. They had
They
to.
had
They
to,
had no other
right?
choice.
And so what I'm saying is like, what I'm saying is certain things that I got from him, and there's certain things he got from his father, and his uncles, who got things from their fathers and 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 uncles, and some of that stuff just trickles down. That's what I'm talking about when I say retentions. And I do believe that musically, rhythmically, there's certain things that were retained from our ancestors through whether it's through our DNA, if you want to say it's the soul of the man, of us, our soul, like James Brown called it soul, right? He called it soul. But I'm saying that some of that stuff, the customs, if you will, the customs were retentions from older ancestors. That's what I'm saying. And so if you can put it together, then you understand what I'm trying to say with it. But I'm just walking the line because I know a lot of people have a problem with associating with their ancestry at this point, right? It's true. It's true. That's why we have people who are denying that certain things happen. People are denying that the slave trade happened. People are denying that they have African ancestry, etc. So I'm just saying certain things I believe were retentions. For instance, let me just give you another example. Right, soul power. Yes. Let me give you another example of what I believe to be a retention. My grandmother, her name was Cora. My maternal grandmother, her name was Cora. Cora. Now, for people who are studiers of music and instrumentations, this is very important. I want you to pay attention to this in terms of the concept of retention of certain things. My grandmother's name was Cora. Do you know what a Cora is? A Cora is a West African string instrument that you play with your thumbs, right? It's called a Cora. It's a West African instrument. I think you can find it in places like Mali and Senegal and stuff like that. I have in my ancestry, based on the genetic genealogy that was done, Malian ancestry, right?
Right.
The banjo. The banjo is an African retention, whether you like it or not. You don't have to like this. I know people who have a problem with making that connection. But what I'm saying is the banjo is an African retention. And the banjo is a retention or a derivative of what was called or what is called the kora in West Africa.
Right.
So I'm saying they don't have influence. The African people don't have influence on hip hop. What I am saying is that there are certain things that were retained and culturally passed down through generations. That's what I'm saying. And I'm saying that some of that stuff shows up generations later. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that Africans had anything to do with the creation of hip hop. I'm talking about the retention of certain isms, if you will. And that's it.
Okay. It's about that time, man. And listen.
Did you wanted to go into the reparations thing, or because
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying now. We're gonna go ahead and let them understand. See, because man, there's definitely got to be a part two of this. Like I said, I should have did this long time ago. But yes, I need you now to go into also, because we were going to talk about the ADOS, the FBA, the African American, and the freedmen. And I want you to give them the reasons for those, and also what the reparations is about, and what we should expect, because a lot of people, especially the younger generation, think that they're just supposed to give a check out and everybody's going to be a millionaire, that's our color skin, and so they don't understand. So briefly, give them a little bit of what the ADOS means, and the FBA, and the African American, and the freedmen's means. Give them a taste of that.
all right.
And then that'll be the segue to the event that we're gonna do.
All right, so ADOS is an organization that was actually created by a bunch of people. The concept itself comes from a particular individual, but the actual organization is something that the organization itself is something that was created by a bunch of people who were doing a lot of groundwork in terms of organizing. I think starting in the year 2019, and basically what they were able to do was outline and show the importance of delineation and disaggregation, right? I'm going to just speak honestly about what these things are. So that organization and the people who were leading the organization, they were able to show people the importance of disaggregation and delineation, along with, and I'll say the names, Yvette Carnell and a guy named Antonio Moore, are considered the founders of the ADOS organization, which stands for American Descendants of Slavery. However, like I said, there was a bunch of people who actually worked together to really found and cement that organization at the time that they kind of like was born. And that's what they did. They are considered a reparations organization, who in the very beginning, when we first started to like really pay attention to what was going on in 2019, we were in support of us at Be the Power. We were in support of the ADOS organization, and the professor who was working along with them by the name of Dr. William Darity, because they were putting out some very powerful information that we thought was useful and could be beneficial to the masses. And so we joined not the organization, but we joined the conversation and the advocacy of reparations, to help bolster the message and to add on to the message with the information that we had. Now,
Oh, hold on, hold that right there, because Lord Abba is in the building. Naheem is in the building. I'm getting ready to go ahead and throw him. He just left off of there, but I was getting ready to throw him in there because that would have been a perfect segue for both of you to go in there and just do it. But now it looks like he's off. He's off. Wait, let's see if I Let's see if I can
There
put
he
him in
is.
there. Let's see if he's in there. I don't see him. I don't see him. Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Naeem?
I could see him.
You see him?
I see him. Yeah.
I don't see him. I see the name, but I don't see him.
I see him on the screen.
You do?
I can see him on the screen. Yeah. He says something is wrong with the headphones. He's trying to make some adjustments real quick. But while he's doing that, let me just say this.
Okay, go ahead.
So let me just keep going because
Go ahead.
FBA is FBA, from my observations, it's kind of born out of the ADOS movement, right? It stands for Foundational Black Americans, and it's the terminology is a terminology that was brought forth by Tariq Nasheed, and who was also in support in the very beginning. He was a supporter of the ADOS movement, American Descendants of Slavery movement, and he brought forth the terminology foundational Black American. And it's kind of, from what I can assess, a variation of a terminology that was brought out by the Powernomics, Dr. Claude Anderson, where he used the term Native Black American. And so Tariq kind of, I believe, kind of altered it. And instead of saying Native Black American, he says foundational Black American, right? But the thing is, foundational Black American is a terminology that is used to identify a specific group of people, um, using the same understanding that the ADOS movement had, which was that there was a need to delineate and disaggregate quote unquote blackness so that you can identify who the descendants of the enslaved people in the United States were. And so that was Tariq's way of doing it. Yvette, Antonio Moore, and the people who were working with them, it was a whole bunch of people from California to the DMV region to New York to Chicago. There was a bunch of people who were working together to create that ADOS movement. And so um, that's what happened. The way the whole Freedman thing comes into the picture is from our organization, Be the Power. So what is Be the Power? Be the Power really was just a think tank of myself and my brothers, like Naheem, Lord, a lot of people know him as Lord Abba, my other brother Logic Supreme, um, my other brother Grimion L, um, Josh Gray L, right? And so what happened is our group came out of the Moorish movement. We came through different movements. To be honest with you, the Moorish movement was just one of them, right? But that was the last one we were dealing with, and so we have like this bond with each other where we were always building with each other on the phone. Like we was on the phone with each other for a number of years, damn near 24/7. And so we kind of just developed this bond and relationship, the guys that I just mentioned, and we kind of started researching. Well, based on the type of information and the doctrine of the Moorish Science Temple, what a lot of people don't know is that that particular doctrine causes you to research the Reconstruction period. And so that's one of the things that we were doing. We were very heavily into researching the period of Reconstruction because we understood it to be a significant period in American history. And so when we came into the reparations space and advocacy space, what we did was we started to bring certain information that we had acquired through the various schools of thought that we came through, um, and introduce the whole concept of Friedmanism, if you will, right? Or Friedman consciousness. Some people call it. Some people call it Friedman consciousness. Some people call it Friedmanism, right? And what that is basically the understanding of the fact that Reconstruction, the Reconstruction Amendments, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments, the 1866 Civil Rights Act, the 1875 Civil Rights Act that was overturned ultimately by the Supreme Court as being unconstitutional, the Ku Klux Klan Act, or the Enforcement Acts, the Freedmen's Bureau Act, the Freedmen's Bank Act. All of these things were designed specifically for a particular class of people, right? The freedmen class, for the purpose of helping them transition from slavery with this newly acquired status of being freed people into American citizenship, as to be full citizens and to be able to access everything the United States has to offer as citizens. However, the efforts of Reconstruction were overthrown. Why is that significant? Because when the efforts of Reconstruction gets overthrown, like the looting of the Freedmen's Bank, the overthrowing of the undoing of the legislation which created the bureau, the Freedmen's Bureau, these things that were designed to help a people who were emancipated into poverty and homelessness and racial terrorism, were then taken away. And then in 1877, you have this compromise based on a presidential election that happened, where one of the things that came out of the compromise was that the federal troops that were in the South to protect the freedmen and women and their families from racial terrorism, is that they agreed to remove those federal troops from the South. And so they left, the United States left our ancestors vulnerable to racial attacks. Thus, you have this influx of lynchings, etc. Most of the lynchings, a lot of people don't know, occurred after emancipation. And so these things began to happen. You began to see black codes, implemented in southern states. The introduction of Jim Crowism takes place, etc. So with Jim Crowism comes a bunch of racial terrorism, comes what we call today the so-called racial wealth gap. So what it is the racial wealth gap is actually an outgrowth of the failed efforts of Reconstruction. And so what we've come to understand about freedmanism is that the freedman is actually a class of people that includes not only the emancipated, but also the descendants of the emancipated, which is us, the descendants of the emancipated. And when it comes to the issue of remedial justice, or what people call reparations, that particular class of people is owed. So when ADOS and FBA were talking about delineation and disaggregation, what we came to find out was that the delineation was already done by the United States government when they emancipated the enslaved population and legally documented them as freedmen, specifically American freedmen. And the reason why American freedmen is important is because there are other freedmen in the United States, the Indian freedmen, right? You have the Cherokee freedmen, the Chickasaw freedmen, the Choctaw freedmen, the Creek freedmen, and the Seminole freedmen. To this day, right? You still have these freedmen families underneath the Indian jurisdictions, as well as they're citizens of the United States. So they hold dual citizenship. But the fact of the matter is, in 1863, there was an inquiry commission called the American Freedmen's Inquiry Commission, and this was created by the United States government in the middle of the Civil War, right after the Emancipation Proclamation. And this particular commission was designed to assess the conditions of the freedmen families, to see what it is that the United States government can do to assist these families and to take them out of the conditions and the status that they was in, and bring them into this new status of freed people as American citizens, first class citizens of the United States. That was never done. And the reason we know it was never done was because during the civil rights movement of the 1960s, what they were attempting to do not completed during the Reconstruction period. The 1960s was not successful either. So here we are today. Here we are today with a racial wealth gap. We are here with a bunch of failed uh, um, a bunch of failed efforts on the behalf of the United States government, things that they left us hanging with. We've lost millions of acres of land, right? Millions of acres of land that was acquired through the hard works and monies that was saved by our people. Millions of acres was lost. And so we are here in the place where we're talking about this reparative justice or reparations. I like to use the term reparative justice because reparations is a justice measure. It's not something that is a handout like a lot of people think it is. It's actually about justice. And so that's what we're saying. The freedmen class in the United States is owed something by the United States government because they allowed, number one, members of the citizens to be enslaved, and number two, when the efforts were supposed to be made by legislative action to assist these families to transition from slavery into freedom, they failed. They allowed racial terrorism to take root. They allowed black codes and Jim Crowism to take root. They allowed sharecropping to take root. They allowed millions of acres of land to be taken away. They allowed heirs property. They allowed all of these different things to happen. They ran highways through our communities. There's a lot of things that occurred that supports the reparations advocacy. A lot of things that occurred. And so that's what it is. The reason we're using freedmen is because it's a terminology that was used legally. It's a term that was used legislatively. It's a constitutional term, and it is not a racial term. That's important for a specific reason. If you want, you could let Naheem go into that just so he could build on that particular information, why we use the term freedman and the significance of that term.
Naheem, are you there?
Peace. What's going on, fam? Can you hear me?
Yes, I could definitely hear you. I think Ali is freezing up right there.
Both of y'all freezing up on my and I think it's me. So I don't know what's going on.
Well, you're frozen now on the screen. You're frozen.
Crazy.
I could see you. I could definitely see you, but you're not moving.
All right.
And I can hear you very good.
Type in the chat, family. Oh, so you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
So I'm gonna just go in and hopefully it'll regulate itself in the recording. Sometimes StreamYard does that, but first and foremost, shout out to you, brother. You're a legend, and I want to make sure I say that every single time that we have any discussions. I don't care what you jump on the Twitter space. That's how it is. Y'all brothers that founded this thing that we fell in love with called hip hop do not get enough credit. And I believe that in this day and time, y'all's story is starting to be heard and it's ruffling some feathers. And people need to know that you guys are legends, point blank, period. Y'all are legends. So I'll always give you your flowers. And of course, shout out to my brother Ali. And shout out to everybody listening in right now. And I kind of want to take it back to the reparations movement and then lead into this freedman thing of ours, as my brother Logic used to say. So during that time, there were three factors of this reparations movement. There was ADOS, there was FBA, and there was BTP. And at the time, BTP, we, came in rocking with everybody. We viewed ourselves as big brothers and as the muscle. Anybody trying to come saying something crazy, saying something stupid, we was going to be some of the first ones to step up. And during that time, while everybody was still cool and everybody was still rocking together, we uncovered this freedman thing, and we were able to show that this is the way to go when it comes to reparations. We fleshed it out. We developed it over the course of 5 years to whereas 4 years later, which was last year, the Supreme Court ruled that this term, or I should say argued, and pretty much that was a part of that ruling, that this term freedman was in fact a race neutral term. And we were able to carry that and with the scholarship and the research we brought, just like Brother Ali said earlier. And when you look at that ruling where they say affirmative action was shut down, but you juxtapose that with everything that's going on in this country, they're shutting down what's called DEI programs, diversity, equity, and inclusion, because you have some white supremacists, quote unquote, in this country. They don't want us to have anything. So if there's anything set up that benefits us, they're going to try to shut it down. Now, DEI programs were not benefiting us. But one of the things that this same Supreme Court case showed us was that the reparation or the remedial justice part of affirmative action was still good for a specific people, those of us who are of the freedman class. There's something in the court called strict scrutiny. And whenever there's a case of discrimination, then the test called strict scrutiny or doctrine called strict scrutiny gets triggered, and it gets weighed against the existing and prevailing law and cases, et cetera, and the government can narrowly tailor something if it has to. And this is one of the things that Clarence Thomas said in the case, in so long as it is advancing a colorblind government. Well, that's what Freedman does. The term Freedman advances the color blindness, right? You can't say, well, this is for black people. No, you just say it's for the freedman class. And that's already legislated. That has already been litigated in the courts and have just been litigated just last year in the Supreme Court. So when it comes to the fight for reparations, whereas Evans, yeah, I know if somebody was trying to jump in.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. So when you look at Evanston, Illinois, for instance, their reparations program is being challenged right now. And it's going to fail. Like when the argument that they're fighting for is going to fail because they are going to put it to the strict scrutiny test, which says you cannot create any legislation specific for race. So one of the things that our team did is that we solved that problem. That problem is no longer a problem. We just need everybody to understand that you can't do reparations for black people. The courts will not allow it. So in that same court case, they proved something that Phase has been saying for years. And one of the things that we heard, because we have been on it for the past 15 years, that black, like white, are just fictitious constructs, and such people simply do not exist. And if they do not exist, well, then how can you craft legislation for them? So now we have this freedman thing. So whereas we can say, well, we are of a specific class, the American freedmen, bearing this legal or political status or this constitutional status of freedmen, and the courts just recognize that. So now we have
wait. I gotta interject. Okay, sure. Because I want you to say that part over again. Explain to them the part about being nothingless with the black. Please say that again and say it with passion and structure. Please let them hear that one more time. Repeat that part again, and I won't interject anymore. But repeat that to them one more time.
No, definitely. And I could break it down in simple terms. This microphone that I'm speaking in right now is black. The headphones that I have on is black. My beard, although cosmetologists will say there's really no such thing as black hair outside of, a few Native American tribes and Orientals, but my beard and my locks are black. And you can contrast that with my clearly brown skin. And so we get to the point of a question. Why do we call ourselves black? And when we come to the understanding, we know that we call ourselves that is because the reason why we call ourselves that is because the Europeans called themselves white. And they, like in the Malcolm X movie, they defined what whiteness was, right? And then they defined what blackness was. But the thing was, they aren't white. My t-shirt is white. You've never seen a human being this color, just like you've never seen a human being the color of this mic. And one of the things that they said in that same Supreme Court case last year, Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard, was that race was fictitious, that it's a fictitious construct. When you read books like Theodore W. Allen, The Invention of the White Race, I got a bunch of books around here. This book right here, I don't know if it's going to show up because my blues, oh, there it go. Ian Haney Lopez's White by Law. It is deconstructing the myth of race and how race has been used to specifically work as a flotation device for European Americans in this country, but as an anchor for those of us who descend from persons of African descent, if you will, in this country. So, you know, there's no black people. And I know some people don't want to hear that, Phase, and they don't want to hear it, but there's no white people.
And so those those black people get reparations?
Well, that's a good question, because if you define black according to the racial classification system in the United States of America, it says black is any person that has origins of any of the black racial groups on the continent of Africa. So that would be Caribbean, Nigerian, etc., etc. So long as they're in America, they would be black. This is why opponents of reparations always say, well, who's going to get the reparations? Who's going to get it? How would you know who's going to get it? Well, those people know when they migrated to this country, and this government has records. They have every record of everybody that has ever migrated into the country, in the same way that they have the records of those who were enslaved and, more importantly, emancipated. Because when those of our ancestors were not named on any census record, or in most cases the slave registers, once we are emancipated, then we have names. And in many instances, we make alteration to the quote unquote former slave masters' names, and we take on new names and start our own bloodline here in this country. But the persistent thing was the usage of these terms, Negro, black, and colored. And like Ali said, we came through the Moorish movement. And so we were able to bring that understanding with us. And so when I heard you years ago on Michael Wayne TV, I'm like, okay, this brother is talking that talk. And we've heard some of that talk in the reparations movement as well from the ADOS heads. They started to understand that this black thing was a problem, because this is something that the European created, number one, to belittle us and make us seem as if we are devils and that they are angels. And all, if you ever look at it, right, you ever
right.
They have
I need the applause. I need the applause button. Applause. Good.
They have an AI Bible channel on YouTube, and they plug in all of the biblical stuff from Ezekiel and Revelations, etc., etc. And all the people are always European. So I always leave a comment and say, oh, wow, heaven is in Europe.
Exactly. Oh, God.
And that is the myth of whiteness, man. There's some videos I post up all the time. One of them is called Invention of the White Race. Matthew Perry, he passed last year. We were supposed to interview him. He was a student of Theodore W. Allen that wrote the 2-volume works, The Invention of the White Race. Again, get this book right here, White by Law, because this guy, Ian Haney Lopez, deconstructs whiteness. And once you deconstruct whiteness, you kind of remove the emotional attachment, and then it forces you to look at blackness, because whiteness is the mirror, or blackness is the mirror of whiteness, meaning it is the opposite reflection of what whiteness is supposed to be. And every trait that they exhibit, they are able to place upon us and say that we are the devils and we are the demons and all of these different things that they label us while they're doing the most devilish and demonic of things. So, you know, that plays
So,
into
quick question.
Mhm.
I have a question then.
Mhm.
So when you have the brothers and sisters that say, well, black is it comes to everything has to come out of blackness and everything has to be, you know, a part. What you say behind that
Well,
theory?
you know, people are gonna try to justify anything. This old book I read says it was speaking about the existence of God, and it says humans. Let me see. What? How did it go? Because we're physical, we presuppose that God is a physical thing, and this is why we call God Him, right? So when people are making those claims, it's a justification for the thing that they believe in. So like I was a young 5%er, and people used to say, "Yo, you know, blackness is the combination of all colors in existence, God." So when I got old, I'm like, is it? Because I mixed all the colors up and it didn't look black. It was like a real murky, it was a real murky brown. I said, well, if blackness is the combination of all colors in existence by a scientific process, how would you extract the red?
Right.
How would you extract it?
Right.
If all things come out of blackness, not the darkness of the womb, right? Because there's no light in the womb. There's light in space. They talk about space. Then how is it that a pale person, a European, is not also black?
Right.
If aren't they our genetic predecessors? If we are separate beings and we are the first people on the planet, and you know Yakub grafted the light-skinned genes out of the dark-skinned genes and created the red and the yellow and then the white race, well then technically everybody's black, nobody's white. So it becomes a question of common sense. I've heard it all. Phase Allah created Adam out of the black mud, and so we were black. What else, man? Oh, Osiris was called Lord of the Perfect Black. I'm like, show me in any Egyptian text where Osiris is called Lord of the Perfect Black. I stump them with that every time because there is no Egyptian text that calls Osiris Lord of the Perfect Black. There is a text where Isis, and I believe that's called the magical papyri, is being mentioned, and her consort is being called Lord of the Perfect Black, but they never say that it's Osiris. This is just a popular name, and so they attribute it to Osiris. And in that same text, the breakdown was that the blackness wasn't representative or indicative of skin tone, but of the fertile land and the iris of the eye or the pupil. The black part of the eye. Oh, geez. I need to get back to my elementary.
So from what I'm getting and I'm gathering from what you're saying is that, so where did this term black come from? Were we our ancestors, were they walking around calling each other black? Is that how they identified themselves?
No. And I've done research into this. There's no history of our people calling themselves in a group setting or worldwide of black people. There's just none, zero. We don't take on this nom de guerre of blackness until we start to interact with the pale-skinned nations of Europe, and we start to take pride in being different from this people who are becoming dominant in the world. Like, I mean, I've written on this. I've done video breakdowns of this. I've had debates on this very topic. But the fact of the matter is, man, it's just not something that happened. These Europeans called us Negro from the Spanish negri and negra, which means black. And then in the English, they picked, instead of maintaining the word Negro or negra or negri, they used the German word for black, which was like, you would pronounce like bleg. And somehow bleg becomes black in English and now all of a sudden people with brown skin are black.
So what would you tell the people that that say, well, listen, that's all I know is being black, and us black people have to do this, and us have to do that. Us black people have to continue can say we're black. What I want to know is, so if they keep this black status, right? Will you think that the government will say, okay, we're going to give all the black people these reparations? Do you think that will happen?
No. See, that part of it, how do people choose to self-identify? We don't necessarily debate with people on that, right? You got people that silly people running around resurrecting the term Negro, right? And we don't try to debate with them on it until they start encroaching on our fight for reparative justice, reparations. But other than that, no. But
right.
Education.
So that's what I want. That's what I'm trying to get at. So okay, so let's say, for instance, that so we were all the way at the door to get reparations, and they told you to fill out this application, and you filled out the application, and it said black. Right? Someone else filled out the application and it said black. And I went and I filled out the application. I said Freedman. Would it be more likely that I'm going to get that reparations?
Well, that's kind of a framed way to put it, right? Because you're framing it from an understanding that you have already. So I'll say this. I will say.
Well, I'm saying it for them to understand.
I got you. I got you. So, but that's what the education is for. The education that we've been doing is to say that you can't get reparations as a black person. You just can't, because the United States of America, they won't allow it. The justices, the Supreme Court, the legislators will know that you cannot draft up that type of legislation. So what we can say is, let us trace your lineage. If maybe you're somebody that's unsure, because most of us know that we have roots, especially those of us that was born and raised in New York. We know that we have roots in the South, right? We know that. Some of us have taken trips to the South in the summertime when we were young, or family members came up to New York when we were young. We know that our roots in this country are in the South. So the genealogical aspect of it is easy. So once we put once the research becomes more prevalent and widespread, then people will be able to make the determination, like, you know what? Yeah, Freedman, I get it. It separates us from everybody else, because the government is saying, well, we can't give reparations to black people. But the government has already given reparations to those that bear this special status of freedmen. In that Supreme Court case, for instance, Justice Kavanaugh, when he was debating with Cameron Norris, one of the lawyers for Students for Fair Admissions, he pressed him and he said, so would you say that a benefit given to the descendants of slaves is not based on race, but based on their status as being formerly enslaved? And the dude Cameron Norris was like, well, no. And then Kavanaugh was like, well, earlier you said that a reparation, let's just use that term, can be given on the basis of their status as opposed to their race or their skin color. This is already in the Supreme Court. So the question now is building the form out to say, are you a descendant of emancipated persons? Are you an American freedman? If you are, then you are in fact owed reparatory justice by the United States of America. So we don't even need to bring race into it. But that's contingent upon how well we are able to spread the teachings into the, you know, the broader society.
Well, you know, Naeem, I am tickled pink right now because you know, I've been trying to say some things for a minute now. I've been really trying to say some things for a minute. We are running out of time. We done been on here for 2 hours 26 minutes. So I need you and Ali to talk about this event, and then we're gonna shut it down at 2:30. So you have about 4 minutes to talk about the event, the up and coming event that's coming on. And we have to do a part 2 of this. There's no way in the world, you came in late, Naeem, but there's no way in the world that we cannot not finish this. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So we definitely have to do a part 2 to it. Now, I don't know what the screen status of, but Ali, can you see him moving? Ali
froze on my end.
Yeah. So all I'm seeing is both of you guys frozen.
It might.
I don't know.
Let me say, it might, when it plays back on YouTube, it might clears up. It might clear up. It does that sometimes.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and yes, Ali just moved a little bit, but Ali, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Yeah, Ali is all the way frozen. He's all the way frozen. Okay. So all right. So let them know about the event that we're gonna be doing. Can you tell them about that?
Well, I'll give them a little bit. You know, we are in discussions, you know, with our brother Phase to throw a grand event next year. And you know, we're still working out a lot of the details, right? We're still working out a lot of the details. But you know, I'm gonna take the opportunity for those that are watching to say it's time for us to unify, especially those of us that's pushing reparations. So, and we want to invite everybody out to the event. There's no big eyes and little Hughes in this space. I will say, you know, bragging, because I think me and my team is just like that. There are levels to this thing. I can't help it. I'm an old New York City battle rapper. I can't help that part of it. I just can't. I'm just saying, I can't help that part of it. But other than that, man, we need unity, man. And we're gonna put the call out. We're gonna put the call out for everybody to come and show support. Everybody is unifying around us. And I don't want to take up too much time, but I want to say the Arab Americans in the state of Michigan, they were able to politically organize, man, and get things done in that state to show the Democrats that they mean business, and we need to do the same.
Exactly. Ali, do you have any? Are you there? Can you hear us? Are you there? I think Ali's thing is off. Maybe his microphone is off or something, because he looks like he's really frozen. Y'all was getting on me about my jinky Wi-Fi.
Oh no,
I got you.
You know, usually when that happens, because I host live streams, is usually the host. Now I don't know.
So when I was on your show, that's who I thank you.
That's a good
I'm
one.
gonna go back to the show and I'm gonna say that's what happened.
That's a good one.
All right. So listen, you know, you guys, we already put your stuff up there. Everybody sees how to get to BTP, and that's it. So we're gonna do a part 2 as soon as you give me the okay to us to do the part 2, and we're gonna do the part 2, and we're gonna keep on putting our foots on their necks, and we're just gonna go ahead and do that. And like you just said, that we're not against anybody saying accepting being called black. If that's what they want to do, go ahead and do it. We're not going to debate them on that or anything, but we already know what we're going to do. And
That's
we
right.
already know the path that we're on and what we're doing. Okay.
I got one more thing, Phase.
Yes.
If
Go ahead.
everybody could go to our website, usadof.org, usadof.org. Number one, it's a lot of information on there, but sign that petition, because we're going to pressure the Biden administration before he gets up out of here to impanel a commission to study reparations and come up with recommendations on how to repair our people. Make sure y'all go to usadof.org, sign that petition. Also visit our website, bethepower.org. Peace.
Okay, hold on. Let me put that up there.
Okay.
So give me the letters again.
usadof.org.
Hold on. USA
Mm-hmm.
D what?
DOF.org. And the other one is bethepower.org. I put that in the back chat so you could just kind of copy and paste if you need to. Okay. Make sure y'all visit the website. Come build with us, fam.
Okay, let's make sure that this is it. Okay, let's see if that's it. Is that it?
That's it. Go to the website, sign that petition. Yo, we got the opportunity now, man. Yo, Martin Luther King said we don't need everybody. We just need a creative minority to move everybody forward. And I believe that this culmination of us, man, from politics to hip hop, is bringing us culturally to this apex. And I always felt that once we got there, it's like Malcolm X said, once them people from the streets get into the political field, that is when these people are going to tremble in their boots. And that's one of the things that we're setting up to do. Shout out to my hood, though, because I see, somebody shouting it out. Far Rockaway, Queens is in the building. I got to give a shout out to Far Rock. You know what I'm saying? Got to give a shout out to Far Rock in the building. Straight up.
All right. Ali, is Ali there? Can he hear us? He said he could hear us, but he's not saying anything. Are you there, Ali? Can you say something? Give some closing words.
I can't hear him. Can you hear him, Faze?
No, I can't hear him at all. He's frozen.
Well, he wasn't frozen. I could see him moving his mouth, but I couldn't hear no word. That's how I was when I first came on. So right. I had to reboot the whole thing. So definitely, man. Thank you for having us on, brother, man.
Listen, man, this is not the end of it. This is totally not the end of it. And we're definitely going to do a part 2. We're going to connect, all. I'm glad that we were able to connect some of this to what the title was. And so we're showing the infiltration. And listen, man, we're gonna do what it do. And we're gonna get this. We're gonna definitely. Oh, there he is. Let me see if he's there. You there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
There.
I just want to say this because somebody said they have an ongoing study on reparations already. This particular petition that we're asking people to sign is designed to push the Biden administration and even the Harris administration, if there is one after this, to actually impanel a reparations commission to not really study reparations, but to actually come up with recommendations on how to fix the problems and make the and suggest remedies and solutions to Congress in order to get Congress to pass the proper measures in order to meet our remedial justice. We're not trying to study reparations. We
No, yeah,
need,
I misspoke.
yeah, we need a commissioning panel, a presidential commissioning panel that can come up with the proper remedies and recommendations for Congress. That's what we're talking about, you know. And so this is beyond HR 40. This is about actually getting something done. We also are looking to push these administrations to begin to create offices of Freedmen Affairs where we can get actual tangibles delivered through these particular offices, the same way offices of New Americans are created around the country at state and local levels and around this particular country, and we can get one done on the federal level. We already had a Freedmen's Bureau, but we can do one, a new, improved, fully funded Bureau of American Freedmen Affairs to deliver tangibles specifically for our particular families in this country. And so we have real ideas about what needs to be done. We know what needs to be done. We're not looking to do studies. We're actually trying to get this government to move on the things that they actually owe our families for generations.
Okay. Anything else? That's it.
That's it.
That's it,
Don't just fight the power, become the power. That's
the power.
That's our motto, become the power. And it's our time to become the power. Period.
Okay, you guys, it's been wonderful. And I will be soon putting up the part 2 of when we're gonna go back on and we're gonna do the actual continuation of this. It was a great show. That's it. So thank you guys so much, and we're gonna be